January 15th, 1976. One final night for the Lutz family at 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, New York. After attempting to drive the demonic presence out themselves, George and Kathy appear to have made it worse. The entity is angry.
These entities that are present are trying to hold the family there because the longer they're there, the stronger these things are able to be.
Its goal is to just destroy the family. I think that what happened there to the Lutzes, that the end result was it wanted them just like it got the DeFeos.
Once again, the haunting begins at 3:15 in the morning, when George Lutz is suddenly awakened the very hour Ronald DeFeo murdered his family.
There was a storm going on just outside the house, and it was pretty violent out there.
But something is wrong. When George tries to move, he realizes his limbs are locked in place, paralyzed. And then he hears it, an ear-splitting thump coming from his stepson's bedroom.
I have distinct memories of being unable to move, laying in the bed and hearing the boys' bed slam up and down overhead and not being able to get out of bed and go see what was going on with that.
For a parent to feel pinned to the bed if something's happening to their children is a terrifying scenario. I couldn't imagine having it happen like that.
George slowly turns to Kathy for help, but she's not there. Horrified, he sees her body floating above the bed.
Kathy levitated up off of the bed and slowly began to go towards the wall, to move towards the wall away from him. He could not move. He was trying to scream, and he couldn't.
Then, George feels a presence at the foot of his bed.
There was a fear that I really can't describe very well. I felt something get in the bed and set down on the mattress.
He said it was like a hooved figure marching on his chest. This complete paranormal circus is taking place, according to George.
There were shadows that were moving outside the door, up and down the hallway. And still, he can't get up out of bed. At one point, he said that he made two distinct sounds. There was one that he described as a low, moaning, wailing sound that came from the core of him, just a scream that erupted out of his body.
George fights with all his being to break the shackles of evil. He feels his muscles about to burst. Somehow he manages to grab Kathy and pull her down to the bed. The paralysis is broken. But the unrelenting paranormal assault is just getting started. The next hours are a blur of nightmarish memories for the whole family.
I have distinct memories of our dog Harry. He would just get up and circle and lie down again, get up, and he would get sick, and then he would lay down again.
Danny Lutz told me about his bed levitating and hitting the ceiling and bouncing back and forth, that both he and Christopher's beds were doing this.
Kathy wakes up. George turns to look at her, but instead of relief, sheer horror.
And when I looked up, saw what caused him to back away, and that was my reflection in the mirror. My hair had turned color. It was a gray-white. My face was severely wrinkled, deep impressions coming down across the forehead.
As the storm continues to rage, the haunting reaches a horrifying climax. The front door slams over and over. The dog howls in fear. But then, all at once, silence. Kathy slowly returns to normal. The spell has broken.
The boys came down in the morning absolutely frightened. I mean, they were unable to get down to me, and I was unable to get up to them. Missy came in and just asked what was that all about.
Unsure what to do next, they reach out a third time to Father Ray Pecoraro, the priest who performed the original house blessing.
We tried very hard to get Father Ray on the phone. It wasn't until he actually said to us that we had to leave. We had to leave the house. It hadn't occurred to me that this was something we really should do or must do.
Still, even after a night of hell, something inside them resists leaving. The house still holds them in its evil grip.
A lot of times when it comes down to a so-called demonic haunting, breaking the connection of you actually leaving the house and cutting all ties with it is one of the hardest things to do, because you become to a point dependent on what is in that home. You feel some sort of a connection, whether it's a positive or a negative connection, it's a connection. And you feel like you're ripping yourself apart to sever that connection.
Father Ray's encouragement is just enough to break the spell. As if in slow motion, the Lutzes gather a few bags and get ready to leave.
There was a sense of confusion. He talked about not being able to communicate, of not being able to just get together with the children and get out of the house.
It was a whole process that day of trying to get clothes together, trying to get things in order so that they could get in the van and leave the house and go to Kathy's mother's house.
At 4 in the afternoon, the Lutzes pile into their van. But the house resists. It still won't let them leave.
There was a banging in the van all the way out of Amityville from the outside. And I remember being pretty much thrown around on the road a couple times.
The Lutzes have experienced unimaginable horrors. They've fled the Amityville house. But are they truly free? Could the entity follow them wherever they go? George Lutz reaches out to experts in the paranormal, hoping to find someone who can fix the house. He contacts Jerry Solfin, a parapsychologist at the Psychical Research Foundation in Durham, North Carolina.
When George Lutz called me at the Psychical Research Foundation, he was having some experiences in his house that he wanted to tell me about. That was my first alert to the fact that there was something unusual happening there.
After hearing his story, Jerry Solfman agrees to send a field reporter to Amityville to conduct an initial investigation. George is eager for a quick answer, but Solfman resists.
I told George, I have no doubt that you're trying to be honest with me, but there could be a lot of reasons why these experiences are happening.